Shalom Talmidim. After looking through your translations earlier this week from last week, from Genesis 1:11 through 12, I wanted to make a video here where I walked through some of the elements in those two verses, which are very challenging verses. I want to commend you for the work that you did on them, but I also saw a number of places where there were a lot of you who struggled with the same kinds of things. And so I want to just walk through this with a screencast sort of thing, so you can see the text and you can see my cursor will move around and you can follow it, so that will help you track what I'm talking about, and I'll try and keep it pointed at the words that I'm talking about. But I wanted to walk you through some of the grammar stuff that you may have missed or that may have been confusing, that was maybe too difficult for me to explain in comments, or I just wanted to give you another opportunity to take in some of that grammar, because when you're doing the work of translation, that's where all of the disparate elements of grammar that you've learned and tried to find categories and shelves for in your brain, doing the work of translation starts gathering those things together and forcing you to synthesize. And it's a difficult process, but it's a really helpful and beneficial and necessary process. So I'm just going to walk through these two verses for you, and I won't talk about every single word, but I'll try and get some of the tough ones that a number of you missed. So, Vayomer, this is familiar to you, you know this word, and he said, the Vav consecutive, Pa'al, and the subject comes next, Elohim, so and God said. And now God is speaking directly, so your quotation marks in your translation would begin here, and God said, Tad She, Tad She. So here we have an imperfect verb. You can tell it's imperfect because it begins with this prefix, the tav prefix. It has three root letters here, dalet, shin, and aleph. And in order to determine the stem, you need to look at the vocal pattern that surrounds or animates the word, right? So to do that, you want to look at vowels. The vowels are a primary indicator of the verb stem. And there are also, on some verb stems, some binyanim have consonants that are inserted that also help communicate the verb stem. So the patach under the prefix is a big sign about what verb stem it is, and the tsere between the second and third root letters. Those are both important signs. The patach under the prefix indicates that it's a he-feel, imperfect. You'll recall from the textbook that the prefix is like a hammer that bangs on the hay at the beginning of the he-feel, and all you can see is the top part of the top horizontal part of the hay, and that's the patach under the prefix. And the tsere between the second and third root letters is the shortened form of the hirik yod between the second and third root letters that you get in the he-feel. So the shortened nature of the form, as well as the context, here in Genesis 1, God is speaking, inviting creation to happen. The context and the shortened form in particular of the imperfect indicate that this is jussive. Jussive, as you'll recall from a previous chapter, is a form of the subjunctive in the imperfect, either second person or third person. And you would translate it as let or may. So here this is let her sprout, let her grow grass or produce grass. And so the tav prefix here is the third feminine singular. It is the same form as the second masculine singular, you'll recall, but the next word is the subject, and that subject is a feminine singular noun, and so you know it's third feminine singular. So let the earth sprout sprouts, something like that. Let the earth bring forth grass, or sprout new fresh grass. I like to say let the earth sprout sprouts because it maintains the repetition here of the root, dalet sheen aleph and dalet sheen aleph, between the verb and its object. So let the earth sprout sprouts, comma. Esev is like a green plant. And here you have the patach, initial patach again, and a hirik yod between the second and third root letters. You haven't learned the participle stems yet, which is why I identified it for you as a participle. But you do know the hifil signs, right? Patach and hirik yod. So this is a hifil participle from the root zayin resh ayin, which, as you can see, is also followed by a noun form of the same root. So to cause a seed, or to yield a seed, or perhaps to seed a seed, that would maintain the repetition here, right? So let the earth sprouts, and plants, green plants, seeding a seed, or yielding seed. The participle you want to do in the present tense. Participle is ongoing, continuous action. And so this verb, this verbal clause here is describing this noun, and this verbal clause here is related to this noun. So let the earth sprout sprouts, and green plants yielding seed. Etz pri, etz is tree, pri is fruit. So a tree of fruit. This is a construct chain. I think that construct chains are actually in maybe the next chapter, so you haven't learned about those officially yet. But you can see fruit and tree. And so you could translate this as, sorry, it says tree and fruit. You could translate this as a fruit tree. So a fruit tree, ose, you know this word, you know this root, you've had it as a vocab word. And it's identified here as a kal or pa'al participle. It means making. So a fruit tree making fruit. And here's a word that a number of you got hung up on. So this is a composite of 3 different words. The first word here is lamed. It's the preposition, the inseparable preposition lamed, meaning to or for, but it can also mean according to. The middle word here, mean, is not the preposition mean, which is spelled mem nun with a hirik. This is mem yod nun, or hirik yod nun, which is the word kind or type, or perhaps species, think of it that way. And almost all of you missed the holem vav on the end. There's a holem vav on the end here, here, and here, as well as some others later on. The holem vav here is the third masculine singular suffix. His. Here, mean is a noun, so it's possessive. When a suffix attaches to a noun, it's possessive. So his, or more accurately, its in English. So fruit tree, or fruit trees, perhaps, making fruit according to its kind, or perhaps according to their kind in English, because even though it's singular noun here, a fruit tree, it's talking about the character of creation. So not just a single fruit tree that makes fruit, but fruit trees that make fruit. It's describing creation. Or it's actually invoking this into being, speaking this into being. So fruit trees making fruit according to their kinds. So this idea, let me know, is that you say you plant an apple tree, you don't grow a zebra or a peach or an asparagus, right? So the kind is the seed of the next generation is living in the present generation, and the succeeding generation will be like in kind to the present generation. So that's what it's describing. Let me know. So fruit trees making fruit according to their kind. Asher, that, the relative pronoun. Zar-o, this is the same word here, zera, seed, but we have this third masculine singular suffix. Zar-o, its seed. Vo, here again, two different words. The preposition bait, which means in. It means many other things, but here I think in is the best translation. Holem vav, third masculine singular suffix. In it. So, etz pri, ose pri, let me know. Asher zar-o vo. That has, maybe you can insert, that has its seed in it. So this whole phrase works together, and it's a celebration of the fundamental character of creation, which is abundance, fecundity. And so creation here reflects the abundance of God. And the poet uses this awkward syntax, this awkward phraseology to capture his or her awe at the wonder of creation, that the seed of the next generation is alive in the present generation, that something of the abundance of God is being embedded into the created world, the fabric or the patterns of creation. Al haaretz, upon the earth, vayhichen, and it was thus, or and it was so. And that ends God right here before vayhichen ends God's direct speech. So when you have a vav consecutive form, you know that you're almost all the time you're no longer in direct speech. So now the narrator follows up, vatotse, vatotse. So here, vav, patach, and dagish in the prefix. You've got a vav consecutive, clear vav consecutive form. This root is yod tzade aleph, and this word is explicitly covered in the he feel imperfect chapter, so you can go back and look at that. The root of this is haaretz. This is a he feel. The yod turns into a holem vav in the he feel, and you've got your tsere between the second and third root letters here. And the earth brought forth. The yod sadi aleph is to go out. The he feel is to bring out, to bring forth. So, and the earth brought forth. You did your lab on this last week. Deshe, right? So we're starting to get a repetition from here, from the previous verse. The narrator is telling you all of these things that God said would happen are being fulfilled. Vatotse haaretz deshe, and the earth brought forth grass. Esev mazria zera, plants seeding a seed or seeding their own seed. Leminehu, this is the same as let me know here, except just a different third masculine singular suffix, perhaps because they wanted to add a syllable or it sounded better. So according to its kind or their kinds. The etz ose pri, and trees making fruit. Asher zar ovo, that have the seed of it in it. Its seed is inside of it, right? Leminehu, according to their kind. Right, so the seed is like in kind to the fruit. Vayar Elohim kitov, and God saw indeed good. Vayar here is not a he feel, even though it's a patach under the prefix. If you go to the missing letter rules on page 133, I believe, you'll notice here patach under the prefix is one indication of a missing final he when you only have two remaining root letters. And there's no tsere between the second and third root letter. I hope this is helpful. Shalom.